We had the debate last week of what Jimmy was going to be charged with. Now we're going to discuss it. Next.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, guys. I love that riff.
It's good.
Hey, guys. Welcome back. You are watching the after show for Better Call Saul, Episode 3, Sunken Costs. I'm Rick Hong. You can follow me on all social media at Rick Hong, RICKHONG, and I'm joined by my panel.
Hey guys, I'm Lacretia Lyon. You can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet since there is only one.
And I'm Steve Kaufmann. There are a couple of me, but you can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That is KAUFMANN.
And for you guys that are missing Zach Wilson, he will be back, so you can always find him at that Zach Wilson. Tweet at him. I'm sure he'll have some sort of idea of what he wants to say to you guys about this week's episode, so do it. And with that, Lacretia, welcome.
Yes, a funny thing is I was actually out last week because I was driving through New Mexico and did stop at Twister's, which is where Los Polos Hermanos actually is.
Oh, I see.
So,
I didn't even go to that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't get to go to that one. Did you do the car wash?
No, I didn't get to do the car wash. My mom was actually mad about the 15-minute detour because we were driving from here to Texas. So, yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. Texas is a big state.
Oh, yeah. Again, she lives on the other side, Tyler, almost to Louisiana.
Okay, well, since you're joining us at episode 3, I just wanted to see what, real quick, kind of what your thoughts have been so far with episodes 1 and 2.
You know, this season, you would have thought it kind of started off with a bang because the big, stuff like Gus coming in, Chuck getting Jimmy arrested and things like that. But it kind of was a slow burn, but I'm liking it, though, because it's really getting into, I mean, as I say, Saul and Mike are my favorite characters on Breaking Bad. So the fact that this show exists at all makes me excited. And these just, long scenes of Mike with no dialogue are amazing to me. I'm like, okay, this is cool. What's going to happen?
We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
I'm a little happy Mike's up to some stuff now.
Yeah, he's amazing.
All right, so what I wanted to do is, so I wanted to kind of just go with, that opening sequence. I thought it was, this... I thought this episode was, we've been talking about it, but, the last 3 episodes, this one for me in particular is directed really cool. I like that opening sequence where we see the truck and the shoes, and I had no idea really what was going on at that point.
Well, see, I always grew up poor, so in a poor neighborhood, the shoe thing means drugs, and so it was kind of funny. And then I was,
whoa, can we start there?
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that mean drugs?
Well, so at least where I grew up, and I've Googled this, so it's like a real thing, is if the shoes are on the power line, that means that there's a drug house nearby. So I thought that was an interesting thing that Mike used to drop cocaine on their truck.
I have more questions about this.
Yeah, no, Steve, please. I'm intrigued too.
Is it a proximity thing? So it's if there's shoes on a power line, there's a drug house on that block, on that side of the street. If they're Converse, does that make any difference than if they're Adidas?
Not to my knowledge. It's just any pair of shoes up on a power line means that you're really close to your destination if you're there to buy some Tina.
So it's not. It's not approximate. It's not even like you're on this block. It's just the shoes mean one of the 20 houses within the shoes.
Yeah, close to it. Yeah,
I'm way too particular for the streets.
I know.
See, now I'm confused.
But where's the drug house, though?
Yeah, it's sort of letting you know you're in the right area. But again, because that is a common thing, you can't know which one is which. But,
Look for the crowd of people standing under the shoes.
Exactly.
That look like they probably partake in selling some extra, curricular activity stuff.
See, I'm baffled because I've seen bunnies. I've seen stuffed animals over the West. I wonder what the stuffed animals mean.
I bet stuffed animals mean psychedelics or some ecstasy
or weird sex stuff.
Yeah, or furry. Yeah, furry.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Steve on that.
It's probably weird sex. I'm pretty sure a bunny means weird sex stuff.
So I think
a bear Screw this episode. We're talking about.
Let's just get into it.
We'll dive into it more.
We're talking about stuff over power lines.
Yeah.
Okay, so it really didn't seem like it was a big mystery who was going to be on the other line, on the cell phone, right? I mean, we
No.
knew you.
Yeah.
We all felt this last
Yeah.
week that it was gonna be.
Yeah, it was gonna be Gus. It wasn't gonna be like somebody new, and you're like, wait, who is that? But maybe there's a little bit of debate about who wrote the note, or no.
Yeah.
It came from Gus, so like whatever debate about who actually wrote the notes kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, he probably has bitches to do that, you know, little low-level guys. Like, he doesn't physically write the notes, but yeah.
Because initially when we were like when I watched that episode and I saw it, I thought that maybe it was Nacho, but
Whoever it was on behest of Gus. So the literal who wrote the note becomes less important, whereas now it's like, well, the note came from Gus, and now we're moving forward with Mike working with a criminal empire to take down a competitor, not kill a competitor.
But not yet, right?
To hurt a competitor.
Not quite yet, though, right? It was just more just like Gus was just really. I'm curious as to what you're wanting to do, and I don't want you to do that. And then it was like Gus that kind of brought up the whole if you want more payback, just rob him again.
Yeah.
That was like just more of like a suggestion, not necessarily team up with me.
No, that was a loose team up, like, because it wasn't come work for me.
Right. There was no offer on the table. Right.
Yeah,
right.
But it struck me as about as formal as an independent contractor in that world could get. Of if it was, hey, you're really good muscle, I'd like to hire you. It would be one thing, you'd be my subordinate forever and do exactly as I say. Whereas if you were to knock over another truck, that would be beneficial to me and I would not stand in your way. Is him saying, I would like you to knock over a truck. However, you're not my subordinate. You're never going to be my subordinate. If you don't knock over a truck, we're never going to talk again.
Yeah, because that's the thing is Gus has always come off as one of the smartest people in this universe. And so, yeah, like, he sees Mike and he knows what kind of guy Mike is Mike is not going to work for someone. But if it's going to be a beneficial, you know, relationship, he knows that he'd be interested in helping. Yeah.
Yeah, and he shows up like he did in Breaking Bad, where just everything is just calm and cool and nice. Nobody's like, I mean, I'm scared to death watching it because even though I know he's not really in harm, I'm still, man, you know, Gus Fring is a scary, scary guy, you know, behind closed doors. But in this situation, he shows up like he always does, just when he's meeting new people. Like, he's pretty cool, like calm, collect, no threats. Like, hey, don't have a gun, I won't have a gun.
Yeah, just if you don't want to do, I don't like. He wasn't recruiting, wasn't strong arming. It was just the usual. Okay, we're meeting now.
Did you think did you think the proposal would be? I don't know. I wasn't sure if when I was watching it, if it was going to be more aggressive. Like, I mean, Gus was going to be calm, cool, and collect, but I wasn't sure if like the encounter was going to be a little bit more like aggressive from both sides, or at least from Mike's side.
Mike is pretty calm and collected most of the time as well, so that's why I love to see that Gus and Mike in scenes together, because there's not a lot of dialogue and you don't need it. Just them sort of looking back at each other. It's just like, yeah, stuff is gonna happen.
It's like it's like two gunslingers in a showdown. What is it, showdown, or it's what do you call it when they're about ready to kill each other?
Duel?
Standoff.
Yeah,
Duel.
standoff.
Duel.
Yeah.
Standoff duel. Yeah. All right. Let's see what yeah, so I mean, we find out like that these guys are competitors, and Gus wants them. Yeah, Gus wants them alive as opposed to dead. So
why does Gus want them alive? Did he never? I don't think he ever specified. And maybe like he never. Other than he said, I would like them to stay. I would like Hector Salamanca to stay alive. He never actually said why.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Because if it's his competitor, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to obliterate his competition.
Well, because when you obliterate the competition, it's a lot, you know, harder to fill those orders. And two, you know, just like, say, in business, you know, like, say, Amazon or, you know, PC and things like that, they like the fact that they have some sort of competition, because if there's no competition, then what is the fun of it? And then there's the fact of you then have to be there for every single person, which you don't necessarily want every customer.
Or...
yeah.
I guess in an illegal enterprise, you want your competition to be, if you're Gus, you want your competition to be more street level. And if you already have an active relationship with it, that the lines are clear, I guess it's a devil you know situation.
Yeah.
Like
That he
maybe
does-
like tiers or levels, like like you were saying, like street, and then maybe he wants to service like a more high class. And then I was also thinking, if you have competition, then it deflects like the feds. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
well, if you're like the only person standing, then like just like what we saw in Breaking Bad, eventually it was just, we want Heisenberg. It
Yeah.
wasn't like, we want that person, we want this person, we want Heisenberg. So maybe that's why it's also, I need a little bit of competition. I mean, that's the way that I would.
Yeah,
Like, that's what I kind of
Yeah.
look at too.
Yeah, I guess, and I think he also, if the feds were to go after one of the two operations, Salamanca's operation, by virtue of being a street operation, would be easier to take down, easier to go after, easier to catch. Like, yeah, I think that's actually genius on Gus's part, that he understands not only where his chunk of the market is, but who to give the rest of the market to.
Yeah, as I've said, Gus has always been one of the smartest people in this universe because he plays the long game and sits there and looks at, I don't want everything. I want this up here because if I take everything, they're going to be after me. And Starman934 in the chat brings up, Gus is planning long term to get rid of the cartel for revenge.
Yeah,
And that is
we
true.
saw that in Breaking
Yeah.
Bad, that his plan was, that's why, because Salamanca, you're right, Salamanca's under the cartel, so if Salamanca goes down, it's just another cartel guy, whereas he already knows how to deal with Salamanca. Actually, that's what I was missing.
Okay.
Of why he wanted Salamanca to stay alive, that it's, his plan was to deal with Salamanca as long as he could, to build his empire, to take down the cartels, which we saw in the fashion he did.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough too, because I mean, then like we have to go back so many. It's like how long ago did you watch Breaking Bad? I mean, from our conversation last week, I went and back and watched the actual Better Call Saul episode, and then I think I watched like the last 3 episodes of like the final season, where, because I was just like, how did Saul disappear? And like they show it like I think the 3rd episode before the last, which of course I had to watch the last 2 of.
Bro, you talking about meth right now?
Yeah.
Going back and watching Breaking Bad, like.
It's like,
You're
I need more
you're like talking
episodes.
about that new meth where you're just like, you ready to relapse, Steve?
Yeah,
You don't have anything going on tomorrow. You can watch like 12 episodes.
I know. That's a problem, and we got to stay focused on this. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's like how much time do we have to try to sit there and be like, wait, let me rewind and try to catch all the storylines and so yeah, okay. So like my whole thing was, did you guys know what Mike was up to? Before, I mean, did you know? Because you were saying about the shoes, like you already kind of knew. So when his sequence was going on, did you know that's not necessarily like the way it was executed, but because I mean, normally you see him with an American veterinarian doctor
Yeah.
getting weird stuff, and this time around he's with like a Mexican doctor, and I love the fact that the lady's like, oh, well, this person has like the stomach flu and this person has that, and oh yeah, the gringo out there, he's like, what's a gringo for? And he's like, the revenge.
That's the thing, is I just love Mike. But yeah, I saw the shoes and I was like, oh, is he like luring them there? But then to have it be that he shoots it to drip the cocaine, I was like, I did not see that coming, and that was the most clever thing he could have done.
Yeah, and that was a very clever, nice sequence.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, the directing part of it. I mean, that's also a part of like writing, in terms of like, let's do it like this, because like I don't think I've ever seen that. Because when he had the gun, I thought that, I guess he's not a killer, but I didn't think that he would actually use the gun as just a decoy. Like where he was just shooting up in the air, as opposed to, I thought he actually had like a real target of like maybe one of the guys.
Yeah, or the gas tank or something.
Yeah,
but like,
something.
but it makes complete sense now that the plan was to have them put their guns away, get back in the car, drive away, and for him to, with a gun, shoot the shoe and have the, what we're presuming to be coke, get sprinkled on the car, without them being weary of the gunshots. So the way you would have to do that is what he did, which was just keep shooting in the air until they get used to. No, those are hunters. That's a gunshot in the distance. Those are hunters.
Yeah.
No.
So that once they, which is weird, because people always see a scene like that and might be like, oh man, how did they not know? And it's like, humans actually are really good at adapting and are terrible at reacting.
So
So the idea, like, so in that moment, those two guys heard those gunshots, and they have to react.
Sure.
And humans are terrible at reacting, and it's way easier to be like, nobody's shooting at us, though.
yeah.
Those are just gunshots. It happens. Let's keep moving. Let's adapt. And that's what happens.
I want to see you on the desert sometime. Get out of a car and start hearing gunshots and see how you actually react. You'd be like, nah, no, that's not for me. That's not directed at me.
No,
This actually happened here at AfterBuzz to me. So yeah, one time I was out sitting in the back here that we have, and we still think it was fireworks, but I just get up and move like to behind the trailer. Like I just get up, move it because I hear it. So I'm like, well, I'm fine back here. And then several people run outside and they're like, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And as I said, I grew up in a neighborhood where they threw shoes on the power line. So you adapt.
Oh yeah. So okay. So
Yeah.
you're talking about the shoes.
Yeah.
So my question to both of you guys is, how many times do you think it would take you to actually get the shoes over the wire?
Ugh.
I am not a very good throw, and so it would be a while.
All right, so it'd be a while.
Yeah.
Less than 10, more than 4.
Less than 10. All right.
It would be less than 10. I'd get it, and there'd be the first 3 would be really pathetic. The first one would be very promising.
You're not gonna hit
But the first one, it would either absolutely happen or it would be super promising. The next 3 would be garbage, and then somewhere between the 5th and the 10th one, I'd actually get it.
Just depends on the shoe, right? Depends on what kind of shoe. Are they Converse or are they Nike?
Yeah, like how much do they weigh? You know?
Yeah.
But
right?
like, you just get a couple
No, I know. I'm kidding. No, I was thinking. Yeah, it was when I saw that, and then I saw the Jonathan Banks sequence. I was thinking to myself, now I wonder. Clearly, like you can't have someone else. I mean, unless you really do it cleverly. But like the way that they look like they did it was actually physically him. But I was trying to figure out how many times he had to sit there and because he's not a young guy.
Yeah.
To sit there and like try to throw it up there to actually make it, or if like they actually let him practice maybe like on like lower tiers and then say, okay, dude, go for the high one.
I honestly think similar to the what I call the Heisenberg pizza principle. I think this level of filmmaking is whatever the first take was, and like whatever the first take was, I think they're just like just throw them. If you make it, you make it, and then he just didn't make it, and then like because then there was that genuine pick them up, do it again, and then they probably just start shooting it a bunch of ways, and if they have to, I guess they would fake it, but 20 times. I think 20 times if your arm doesn't get tired, you'll eventually just get it.
No, I agree. I was just trying to figure out because like I think it took him like 3 because I mean clearly like there's only so many minutes in the show for like to sit there keep watching it over and over and over. I was just wondering how much that was edited to where I wonder how, I mean like in real life how many times it actually took Jonathan Banks to actually make the thing go over the, or if they just said, you know what, keep trying, and if it goes too long, then we'll just cleverly edit to make it look like you did.
Although, no, you're right. They may have had him train in some capacity to be able to do it because these strike me as the type of filmmakers who are like, no, we really don't want to fake that. We absolutely want you to throw it up and make it.
Yeah, and so the end result, like later on, is that we see those guys got busted, and now let's talk about the meat of our debate last week is Jimmy.
I love Jimmy.
Steve and I and Zach, we had a long debate. We were trying to sit there and we're counting like all the different. I think it could have been this, but then I think it could have been that. And then is that a misdemeanor or is that a felony? We were like,
and I think we all, not to toot our own horns, but we nailed it. That we like, oh, they're going. The felony is what they want.
Yeah.
The felony to disbar him.
Yeah.
And that's what we landed on. Also, like, good thing they also talked about the prosecutor a little too.
And I love it's crap, I'm blanking on her name, from Vice Principals, Kimberly
From
Herbert
Vice-
Gregory.
yep, from
yeah,
Vice
and I was
Principals.
like, that's her. She's getting a lot of work because she's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine lately too. So I was like, ooh, she's the prosecutor. This should be funny.
Oh yeah, you go girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So it broke down to is which at least when I was watching it, I think it was a 4th degree felony breaking and entering, and I didn't even realize that there could be a 4th degree of anything in terms of that, and then misdemeanor assault and damage to property. But what I loved at the end of it was his bail bond was only like $2,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even like we could afford if you know,
I
even
mean-
we could afford to be like, oh, 2,500, no problem.
Well, but that's also still you 2,500 right now.
No, I know. I mean, I'm saying like it's I wasn't sure. I was thinking, is it like 10, because we're so used to I guess watching movies and it's either
$50,000.
yeah, or no bail or it's like $1 million. I guess because we're like,
But it's contingent on a lot. Like also like actual bond setting a bond is actually this weird discretionary, like there's no spreadsheet or formula to, well, this many charges, this many years, this many priors. Like the judge just kind of makes up the number.
Yeah, I mean, and that is the thing, is it, and there are always people that talk about certainly like, socioeconomic status and stuff like that comes into play, or, a pillar of the community. Well, Jimmy's not a pillar of the community, but the judge did know him from being in court and like even mentioned like, oh, that's nice that you do elder law. So they were going easy on him. And that was obvious by the $2,500 bond.
or just the fact that too, it's just like, and it's your brother. You're like, it's your brother.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
like,
they
what?
feel it's domestic. So, and that's the thing is, to be honest, in domestic situations, they don't take them that seriously a lot of times. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But I also want to point out 2,500 is still a lot of like.
No, I'm not saying it's cheap.
You're
I'm
not
just saying
2,500 against a felony. Against a felony, you're not going to take a default there. You're going to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, because considering that he is, and I mean, an attorney too, I was like $2,500. It's like you can probably charge like 2 elderly people and be like, yeah, no problem. Of course, yeah, but she also knew that he wasn't gonna flee. So,
Yeah.
It was arbitrary at that. It was an arbitrary number at that point.
yeah, or the risk was gonna be, it wasn't gonna be like he was gonna try to get out of there. So then we had like that debate last week of who was gonna be, you and I and Zach, or I don't know if it was a debate, but a discussion about who was actually gonna defend Jimmy. Was it going to be Jimmy or was it going to be Kim?
I love that he wanted to represent himself, and then the prosecutor's like, moron. But I did like that Kim came in, because I'm with her. I like Jimmy. I'd be there for him.
Yeah?
You know.
Okay. All right.
I think he kind of knows the wheeling and dealing he has to do in that courtroom to get to fight his case, and he doesn't want her to have any part in it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the real aside from Mesa Verde and like the fact she has a full-time course load, a full-time caseload. But it's also that like, no, I'm gonna do some stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some stuff she does not need to be a party to.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that he kind of owned up to where he said, I screwed up, so I'm gonna do this myself, and I don't want to hurt your business because because your business is Mesa Verde.
Yeah, and that's what I like, is that this is the Jimmy McGill that you can see why Kim likes him, is he doesn't want to pull her into this. I mean, they had their little fun, of course I loved how they mentioned the Victor but, and it was like, that's great, but Kim is this good, straight, narrow lawyer, and I like that Jimmy doesn't want her to have to compromise herself. Yeah.
Do we think that, we briefly see Ernesto, so do we think that he's going to come work at Wexler McGill?
I could see that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll make him like a bigger character? I mean, slightly as much as you can, or if it's just like, dude, you're a moron, you're an idiot, forget it. Just you're unemployed, goes to unemployed.
Chuck's plan was to fire Ernesto then.
Oh yeah, Chuck is a bad guy, and that's sort of the thing, is it's hard to root for Chuck because he's so crappy.
Because it's official now.
Yeah.
Like, Chuck's plan was for Ernesto to hear the tape, bug out, tell Jimmy,
And see, that was like,
and then fire Ernesto for telling Jimmy.
Yeah.
and see,
That
that
was his entire plan. Like, you would think he would use kid gloves with Ernesto. Like, it's fine.
I don't know about
Or like send him to the mailroom, or like
I like that
Yeah.
one. Send him to the mailroom.
punish him, but don't fire him, kind of a thing. But like, he must have not had high regard for Ernesto to begin with.
Yeah, I thought he would have punished him like he and Howard punished Kim, like
in the basement.
But yeah, it was like, wow, Chuck just really is that crappy, like that he just straight up fired him. But Michael McKean does such a good job. He's always a villain in everything I love, but still, yeah.
And Laverne and Shirley, he wasn't a villain, right?
Oh,
Playing Lenny.
Spinal Tap?
yeah.
He was a villain in Spinal Tap?
yeah. Well, let's say in the last 20 years. Anything before that,
Okay.
he was not a villain, but like lately.
Someone in the
yeah,
chat name another thing. that
Yeah,
goes
no,
No,
against
no, no, no.
what
You know what?
Lacretia
He
said.
was a villain in the remake of the
Yeah.
Brady Bunch movie. Yeah,
Really?
that's right.
Wow.
he was a, yeah, he was a
Good.
villain in that. He was next door neighbor as a villain. Okay, so I
Yeah.
got your back on that one.
Which remake?
Yeah, that's why I was like recently.
There was a
but,
sequel to that remake.
Yeah.
Man, I wish you guys could have been here. I like the sequel too. It was funny. I wish you guys could have been here episode once because that Zach Wilson, who's not here right now, he actually pointed that out to me and said, "Dude, he did it on purpose with the tape player and all these things. I did not pick up on that." And I was like, "Well, I guess we're just gonna wait and find out." And then, sure enough, that was Chuck's plan.
Chuck
and
is so smart. Yeah. He planned this whole thing. Yeah.
so okay. So like, so maybe we'll. I mean, do you guys want to see more Ernesto?
Yeah.
I think he's a valuable character. It's good to have like a really good guy on the show because everybody else is kind of gray. I mean, you have Kim, who's, pretty good for the most part. But yeah, it's nice to see somebody like Ernesto that has this real heart. And he was like, I really love Jimmy. I wanted to help him.
Well, if you're speaking of hearts,
Yeah.
then my question is does Chuck have a heart though? In terms of do you think that he's backpedaling a little bit on what he wanted to do to Jimmy?
Nope.
No, he
That's
is
not a backpedal
manipulating
at all.
that prosecutor all the way.
This was his
Yeah.
plan. This was
Yeah.
his plan from jump, that whoever the prosecutor was going to be manipulated in the sense, which was why there were assault charges, and then he immediately devalued them.
Mm-hmm.
There were assault charges pressed, and then the second the prosecutor meets with him, well, he had a weapon, but he would have never. It was my.
He would have never used it on
I
him.
never felt threatened. Like he was already having her scratch off the assault.
So this is still part of his plan, not him backpedaling from what Jimmy
No.
had said about, dude, hey man, you're gonna die alone. There's nobody to take care of you.
No, this he didn't want for Jimmy to pay a fine or go to prison. He doesn't care about any of that. He wants Jimmy to not be a part of the sacred order that he is, because he sees that as everything. And I think to a certain point now, he sees that as greater than his own flesh and blood. That nope, I'm a lawyer because I'm good enough. My brother was never good enough to be a lawyer.
And that has been Chuck's whole arc since the beginning of this, is he has resented the way that Jimmy became a lawyer, American Samoa University, things like that.
American
And,
Samoa
and,
University.
he doesn't take him seriously as that. But he doesn't care what else Jimmy does. He just doesn't want him to be a lawyer because that's his thing, and he's going to keep it no matter what.
Which
Like sick.
there should be
Yeah.
some, whereas the average person or any person should learn from, well, I went to this astute place and that astute place, and I'm a man of the law. And then your brother goes to, I'm not going to say a fraudulent university, but a university that's way less this, that, but your brother's just brilliant. Like, whereas your brother's a brilliant lawyer, you were a brilliant scholar. A brilliant couple other things, but not necessarily just a brilliant lawyer.
It's kind of
a brilliant thinker, and that I could see someone being jealous about that. I could see someone feeling that devalues what they've done.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is Chuck sees all of his hard work here in the sense of, like, he is the best because he's done all this. But actually, Jimmy has the talent, and it really didn't matter where Jimmy went to school and all this stuff that Chuck values so high. And on top of Chuck's mental illness, it turns into Crazy Town.
I like that word that you used, talent. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jimmy's got talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chuck's got brains, but Jimmy's got talent.
No.
So like it makes him like on even ground as opposed to where Chuck wants to look down on Jimmy.
Yeah.
I can make a lot of hockey analogies, but no one's going to know what I'm talking about.
And
so
it's
we're just
also-
gonna go with that.
I'd be lost too.
And it's also a pure idealism versus realism. Like, Chuck will always see the world as it could be, as he thinks it could be, whereas Jimmy will always see the world as it is.
Yeah, I like what you said. I like exactly what you say there too.
Like that's what will always clash. That everything Chuck ever will say will be filtered through what he thinks the world should be. Whereas, and I think most realists are depressed because they see the world as it actually is.
And it sucks.
And they either don't act, but if they're brilliant like Jimmy is and they actually act on stuff, they don't do the best stuff, but they're only reflecting the world around them.
And this is funny. Cyberpleb
Yeah,
says Jimmy isn't a brilliant lawyer. He's a brilliant con man. A brilliant lawyer would be able to accomplish the same things well within the law.
That's
Well,
fair.
Yeah,
that is fair. But most lawyers are brilliant con men.
I will
Yeah.
I will ultimately concede my previous point.
Mhm.
However, I find there's some duality in the word lawyer.
Or as I think I saw once in a movie, liar.
Was it Liar Liar with Jim Carrey?
Objection.
Yeah.
Where's is Jimbo the judge?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Jimbo in the booth, are you the judge here?
Is that sustained?
Yeah.
Bueller.
Overruled.
Oh, come on!
Oh, overruled. That's awesome. Man, good old Chuck. Dude, that just so he's just despicable. He's just there is no heart. He's the Tin Man with the heart.
Well, no, his heart is through his idealism.
Yeah.
He can only love Jimmy if Jimmy conforms to what he thinks Jimmy should be. And like, it'll all be a gradation there, but that's what's happening, and that's what'll happen every time.
What did you guys think of this? Is this is where I thought what I liked about this episode and the directing is I love that whole crazy Kim sequence, like her like getting up, going to work, or like going to the gym, like just like the fast cuts, and I don't know if you guys enjoyed that sequence or if it was just you're like, yeah, okay.
No, it was good, and it was good to show that without Jimmy, Kim would have a very boring but productive day.
Yeah.
All day, every day. But it was good to show like a very set like go get them routine that Jimmy messed up in one morning. And like, because now she's got to show up to court. Like she probably had so much Mesa Verde stuff to do. Like, no, I'm gonna show up to court now because Jimmy screwed up.
Yeah, you heard me say it last week. I thought that so far in Lacretia, I don't know if you feel this way. Because like I felt like her arc last season, there was a lot going on with her. And I feel like so far in these first 2.5 episodes, because like towards the end now, it really looks like they're gonna pump some like I thought her story-wise, it was a little flat for her.
Yeah, I would agree. These first couple episodes did not really focus much on Kim and what she's doing. It was just sort of background, like, you know, obviously the practice is there and she's working with Mesa Verde, but that's about it for her. But yeah, as we see, like, Kim really wanting to be there for Jimmy, that is a good arc for her right now.
Yeah, and seeing her, like, right, as we see her, like, right at the end where they're just like, okay, now we're going to join forces because Chuck is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and he needs her help now.
Yeah.
Jimmy definitely needs Kim's help. Man, there was a lot of law stuff going on at the end of this episode. But they did a good job of explaining it in a way where, like, I didn't, because although they didn't explain till the very end that, like, a felony charge disbars you.
We had
so those of you who didn't watch us last week.
Well, we had a little bit of that discussion where I wasn't sure, and Zach, I think, said you can have a misdemeanor and still practice, or like there's a little bit, and I think they even said
and it was case by case. And they even said, because his whole plan was to plead down to get the felony out. Right. Like, he would probably have taken everything else except the felony, and he even said, like, you in that case you would face up to a couple misdemeanors. You'd have to face the ethics board. And he even said, like, I'll probably get suspended. Suspension's different from disbarment.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is misdemeanor breaking and entering, which is what he was hoping to plead down to. He would probably be suspended, but easily, come back in 6 months. Because, I mean, that is the thing, is as long as it's not a felony. If you get a felony, you are just screwed on a lot of things. You can't work at the airport. You can't, I mean, it disbars you. Same thing with a medical license. I believe you'll lose that as well. Any kind of professional practice. I can believe that. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is it doesn't even have to be related, but whether it's a felony DUI as well.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate he has to deal with this prosecutor, because if you were able to deal with any of the Albuquerque prosecutors, it sounds like It sounds like he'd be able to plead them down.
Yeah,
because he knew them all.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I don't know if that guy had a name. I tried to look it up, and I thought it just said public defender, and then I tried looking at the pictures for the actor, at least initially, like on IMDb, and they didn't have a picture of him. But like, I like that, like a lot of that back and forth.
Yeah.
Between those guys, like at the beginning, and the guy's still obsessed with like where he's like, hey dude, so do you still have that car? Do you have the German car?
Yeah, I love just eating a burger on the bench.
I mean, it also just, to me, like, they did a good job of making, or the way that I picture, like, a lawyer or attorney's life in that courthouse, it's like a vending machine. And then you're going to the cafeteria to get food because you're too busy jumping in between court cases or...
Yeah, I have a friend who is a public defender in Dallas, and that pretty well is a lot of it. You go to the courthouse, you just kind of have to hang out in between cases because a lot of times you're seeing, like, 2 or 3 different people in a row, and so you have to get the crappy vending machine coffee. You have to, eat there, stuff like that, because you don't really have time between, because a lot of it is just like DUI, minor things back and forth.
I have a confession to make. I actually really like vending machine coffee.
Sometimes.
At
the hospital, it's better.
But my entire life, I've never gone to a vending machine and gotten the coffee, the crappy coffee from a vending machine and gone like, oh man, I didn't enjoy this. Where I'm like, no, this was, because even if it was terrible coffee, like it's creamed up. It's creamed. It's like half cream and sugar, and like that's really how most of us like our coffee.
Except me. I'm a black coffee drinker. That must be my thing. Is like, because I'm like, no, don't put cream or sugar in it. I hate that I have to put a freaking protein milk in it.
Also, Paperbat VG in the chat.
Yeah.
Name of the dude is Bill Oakley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he's also mentioned the prosecutor Hayes was described as tough but fair, and that's what Jimmy used to describe Tuco in season 1, episode 2.
Right. Yep.
Of Breaking Bad.
Actually, I was gonna say real quick what's our thoughts on AfterBuzz coffee? Okay, kidding. Kidding.
Good when it's fresh.
Okay.
Not always fresh. They know this.
Right.
I'm not revealing a big secret.
Oh man, that's funny.
You can always make more. No one's stopping you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've missed anything or if we should. I mean, you did talk about how there was a lot of law stuff, and then then we kind of see what the title of the episode, Sunk Costs. And then she says and then like Kim says, yeah, that's the fallacy of sunken costs is whatever this was. And I don't know, Lacretia, if you saw last week too, I thought that Kim did a good job too of debating the well, Chuck could get us for this, but it could be that, and it could be this, or it could be that, or we could do it this way, and so it wouldn't be.
You could get with this, or you could get with
that.
I could not resist, sir. It's late.
Yeah, no. Okay, yeah. It is late. It's late. So like, let's.
But the PPB, it's an acronym I don't remember anymore, but essentially.
Oh, the pre-prosecution diversion.
Which aside from him admitting to a felony is a really good deal for his case. And they do a great job of pointing that out. However, it shows Chuck's hand.
Yeah. And that's where I think that this is why Jimmy actually always winds up outsmarting Chuck, is because Chuck is so singularly focused, but Jimmy is sitting there like, this is what he obviously wants. How are we going to get around this?
Yeah.
Because this is a good deal, but I'm not giving up the law. And because we've seen Breaking Bad, we know that doesn't happen. Yeah.
We actually don't know that.
Yeah, true. He may have
because his clientele becomes very different.
That is true.
Well, and he never actually went to court as Saul. He couldn't have possibly went to court as Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
this is great because he could get disbarred this season.
Yeah, and that he doesn't actually have a law license anymore, even though he takes on these clients in Breaking Bad. It's not on the up and up.
Or let's do predictions.
Yeah,
that's what we're going towards. So yeah, we got our Roswell, New Mexico. TV. Even though the show takes place in Albuquerque.
I've been to both. They're interesting.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah, I've been to Roswell, been to Albuquerque. Steve.
Yeah.
So he's gonna fight. No, gonna go to court and object. No, I think he's ultimately gonna outsmart Chuck here. Because as we've been saying, he's the realist and Chuck's the idealist. And Chuck's not going to be able to wrap his head around the fact that Jimmy's going to even fight this. He thinks Jimmy's going to flip the king. Whereas Jimmy's going to fight until checkmate. And he's going to have a couple tricks up his sleeve. A couple of them might be dirty. Might have a queen up his sleeve.
Seriously, chess shows again. We already did another after show together. That was all.
He wasn't here for it.
Yeah, it's the first time that I'm hearing this, but I'll go back. It's a trick for me to go back and watch the other after show, right?
Yes, yeah. Go watch Gotham. We just came back from a long hiatus. We talk about chess a
Also,
lot.
now's a good time for Cyberpleb in the chat. We got a glimpse of Tyrus, who was driving Gus's SUV.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a Breaking Bad Easter egg.
Oh, okay.
Same guy from Breaking Bad. Tyrus.
But yeah, I do think that Jimmy will outsmart Chuck, and I don't think he will be disbarred from this. Not saying that he doesn't get disbarred later, but
I'm gonna say he absolutely gets disbarred, but not from this.
Oh, yeah.
He gets disbarred from something else.
Something else. Something way worse. Because this would be like, really? That's what does him in?
You know what? Since you guys have your theories, I'll just throw mine in and say maybe because as I've said, and granted it couldn't. We'll see how long this drags out because we're going to be going into episode 4. Maybe Jimmy gets his wish and maybe Chuck dies, and so that kind of throws the case out.
No,
I don't know if it does or not.
No, that does not.
No,
because they're criminal. It's not. If it were a civil case, it would be up to his estate to follow through with the charges, but it's a criminal case, so
the charges wouldn't go away. He just wouldn't be there to testify, and it would be very unlikely that it would go through after that, but they still do have the tape, and they would probably, depending on how he died, there'd be like a deathbed confession. I watch a lot of special victims,
clearly, but I mean, but in the event that he dies, which I don't see that happening. I see the both of them being there as long as there's a show called Better Call Saul. Like, I think that's your end game for the series. But if he were to die without a written sworn-in confession, the prosecution wouldn't have enough to stick with a felony charge, and he'd be able to fight it down to a misdemeanor. But then there'd be no more drama for the show. Yeah,
that's the thing is Chuck, to me, is the main antagonist of this show, and that's what's so interesting is because it's clearly very different than Breaking Bad, where, as in the drug deals and stuff are sort of in the background, while this law stuff is really more of the foreground of the show, which is really interesting, and I think without Chuck, we wouldn't have so much of that. But yeah, Starman 934 brings up a good point. Jimmy still has Chuck's illness under his sleeve, so... I think that this would be the thing that Jimmy uses it, because he has always been at least concerned about Chuck enough and does still have that love for his brother that he doesn't really abuse it. But this, to keep his license, I think he might.
Yeah, no, and we had a viewer last week that chimed in and said about when Chuck was off his rocker that Jimmy did have temporary custody of over a lot of these like judgment calls, and so
we should also point out Jimmy only needs to beat a B&E.
Yeah.
Or a prosecutor. Because he could just flip that prosecutor. So I think next week he tries to beat the B&E. If he can't beat the B&E, he's going to just start digging something up on that prosecutor.
And to me, even the prosecutor, when Chuck is talking about how Jimmy was the one taking care of him until Ernesto came in, even she was sort of like, so he doesn't seem that bad. Like,
but also, the reason she asked, did he have a key? Did you take the key back? Did you change it? Because... then it becomes a lesser charge if you were able to get in. Yeah, because it's the probably the maximum count of, or not the, it's the maximum level of a B&E, where it was I think a count 4 or level 4 B&E that like even if you could start talking it down of like, well no, you were there like 3 days ago. You were there like 3 days ago. You have a key. Like, you're welcome there, kind of a thing. He can get it. Like, he can kind of get away with some of that.
Sort of like being a vampire. He'd been invited in, so,
something like that. I don't study vampire law.
I know. It's a new thing, After Twilight, they started putting it in law schools.
Man.
Yeah, you need garlic water and... Okay, guys. Well, thank you.
No, sorry.
What's that? Thank you for tuning in. We've covered episode 3. We'll be back next week, as well as Zach Wilson. You can find him at that Zach Wilson. And I'm Rick Hong. You can find me on all social media at Rick Hong, RICKHONG. And I got my panel.
Hey guys, I'm Lacretia Lyon. You can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one.
And I'm Steve Kaufmann. There are a couple of us on the internet. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That's KAUFMANN. You can find me on Snapchat under the same username, but be warned, I get kind of weird.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Better call you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.